So if you watched my video that I released on Thursday when I clambered up the Langdale Pikes, you'll have probably noticed that towards the end of the video I was looking a bit tired. In fact, I was shattered, and in all honesty, I probably cut the video a little bit short towards the end because I was so knackered. And yeah, I've just got this problem at the minute where if I've planned a sunrise shoot, I can't sleep the night before. It's something that's happened in the past, but now I'm doing this full time, it's gotten even worse, and it's proper winding me up, to be honest. And I don't know, is that something that any of you guys experience or have experienced? I'd really love to know, because it's super frustrating. I think in my case, you know, I don't feel anxious or worried or anything like that. I think I'm just so excited. I don't think there's two ways about it, actually, in my case. I'm like a child before Christmas Day. It's absolutely ridiculous. And because I'm kind of doing this full time now, I'm so grateful and privileged, and I just can't wait. My passion's just gone through the roof. I just cannot wait to get out with my camera and be up in the Lake District. And I think that's probably what it is, to be honest. I'm just lying in bed, mad for my alarm to go off in the morning so I can get out with my camera. But I'm worried I'm going to burn out. So it's becoming a little bit of a concern. And that's relevant for today's video, that little anecdote, because I wanted to come out first thing this morning to this location, but I couldn't sleep last night. So I had to just say no, and I've come out later. It's almost midday now, so I could get a good sleep. But yeah, pretty annoying. But anyway, I've come to the same locations that I wanted to visit, and the reason I wanted to come out is because fog was forecast. You can probably see in the background there's still quite a lot of it lingering, which is good. I've been quite fortunate. So I've been trying to make the most of that this morning. Now I've already took an image, and it's very minimalist. It's almost minimalist. I think minimalism and abstract can go together quite well, and I do think it fits into both of them categories. But you can see my composition here. I'm going to take two photographs. We've got this branch, which as soon as I got down to this location, I kind of noticed it straight away and thought, yep, foreground interest, fantastic, long exposure. And then we had a lot more fog earlier looking into this scene. You couldn't see any of those background hills whatsoever. So I grabbed that shot, and if I remember rightly, I had a 20-second exposure at f20 ISO 100 with a 6-stop ND on the front. No polarizer, because I wanted to capture all that glare to add to that minimalist effect. The only subject I had when we had the fog was that branch. Now, I'll show you that shot in a sec, but I'm taking another one facing exactly the same way, almost the same composition, but without the long exposure effect, because we've got beautiful reflections now. There's not really any need to do it, and the fog's lifted a fair bit as well since the last image. So I'm just going to adjust this, what's it called, composition ever so slightly, and let's have a look at this one. So now I'm shooting ISO 100 f13 and 1/8 of a second, and there's just a hell of a lot more in this photograph. We've got all the hills in the background, we've got trees, we've got gorgeous reflections, but we've still got that branch as a subject. So what I'm going to do, I'll pop both of them photographs up now, two images. The first one's going to be one when we had the fog earlier, very minimalist and abstract. The second one is just, excuse me, is just me trying to really make the most of these reflections here in the foreground and in this lake. Tell me which one you prefer. So I'm at a location today called Brothers Water, which is a gorgeous location here in the sort of northeast part of the Lake District National Park. And a lot like my video that I did a couple of weeks ago in Yorkshire, I've been inspired to come here by a fellow YouTuber and a fellow landscape photographer, and by a guy called Chris Sale, who, in all honesty, I'd say a lot of you guys have heard of, but if not, I'll stick a link to his YouTube channel in the video description below. In actual fact, I think he's running a couple of workshops from here as well. If you like the look of it, definitely go and check out, you'll be able to find his websites for his YouTube and all that. Great guy with some fantastic content, so thanks for the inspiration, Chris. Brothers Water is really accessible. There's a car park about 10 minutes walk that way. It's free. I think it's just a donation service if you want to donate. And then, yeah, super accessible, really easy path. And obviously when you get a day like this, top drawer. So I've done the old thing of, you can probably see the branch there on the right hand side. I've turned my camera around, probably not even 90 degrees to be honest. Stuck it in portrait dimension. It's one thing I always say, you know, when you make the effort to get to a location, don't be afraid or ashamed to just stay in one spot and take different images. You've made the effort to get here, make the most of the conditions if they're nice like we've got today. So yeah, portrait dimensions. This image is a lot about top to bottom. So you can see, I'll start from the top. We've got that beautiful sky, or what's probably still a little bit of lingering fog or low cloud. Absolutely gorgeous. It adds so much drama to the background of this shot. Working down the hill, we've then got this little farm or this white building on the shores of Brothers Water, which is reflected with them 3 trees as well on the opposite shore. Absolutely fantastic, and they're the conditions that I'm trying to make the most of by getting this shot. The lake is an absolute mirror. It is beautiful. We've got no wind in the air again. I'm feeling really sort of lucky and privileged. And then, of course, we've got this beautiful grassy bank here on the shores of Brothers Water, which is just the most perfect leading line. It curves us into those reflections. Absolutely gorgeous. So I've got no filters on here. I'm shooting at 1/8 of a second, f11 and ISO 100, and that's giving us the perfect exposure, a nice simple image. I hope you guys like this one. And then, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more exploring around Brothers Water whilst these conditions are so beautiful. So after an enjoyable hour or so down on the shores of Brothers Water, I'd planned to head around to the south side of the lake to see if I could find anything of interest. Just before I packed up my camera gear, however, a couple of walkers suggested that I head up towards Dove Crag to investigate some waterfalls that they had seen. Half reluctantly, I took their advice and actually headed away from Brothers Water. So I'm really glad I took the recommendation from those people down on Brothers Water. Get a look at that, absolutely gorgeous. What a subject. A couple of little waterfalls or cascades. To be honest, I'm actually really drawn to this location as a whole. A bit further down that way behind you, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of flattened out a little bit, and we crossed over a couple of nice little bridges over this beck, and there's lots of lone trees and small patches of woodland. Super photogenic, and it's got a really nice remote feel to it as well, but because it's not far from Brothers Water, although a little bit further than I thought, it's still very accessible. So yeah, I'll definitely be grabbing a shot of this, like I said, and then I think I might actually go back down that way where I came from and see if I can grab another shot, but just I really want to explore back down there more than anything. But yeah, let's see what we can make of this now. So I think I've been a little bit fooled by this waterfall, and obviously this is a glorious scene, but I found it actually really incredibly challenging to expose for, and I think I'm just about there. I'm not 100% happy with this, but I feel like this is the best that I'm going to get. And my initial instinct when I got here was to get the wide angle lens out and get really close to one of these cascades in the foreground, portrait dimension, and then have the 2 waterfalls off in the background. But I tried that, and it was making the 2 waterfalls way too far in the background. They weren't prominent enough in the frame, and I really didn't like that. So I've stuck the 16 to 35 lens back on, and I've actually zoomed in a little bit at 28mm. So it's not, you know, we're not talking telephoto here, but in one sense, it's actually given us a little bit of a telephoto effect. And what I mean by that is we're still getting this little pool area and this little cascade in the foreground, but because we're zoomed in slightly, it's almost bringing those 2 waterfalls closer into the scene, which means they're much more prominent at the top of the frame, and I just really like that. It's fantastic. And we're getting a few of these silvery beautiful trees at the top of the frame as well in the background. Absolutely fantastic. So settings, I am focus stacking, but I'm shooting at f14, ISO 100, and I'm doing a 2-second exposure. And I was playing around with the shutter speed a little bit, and 2 seconds seemed just about spot on for how fast this water's moving. Now there's a couple of things that I want to mention and show to you, because I think they're really, really important with regards to this scene and to this composition. So firstly, I've got the polarizer on the front, which is taking off all the glare in this little rock pool in the foreground here. And I want to just quickly try and grab a bit of a video for you guys, just to show you the effect that it's having. So if you look there, that's with full polarization, so we're cutting through all that glare. But as I move the polarizer around a little bit, you can see probably about there, the ripples are catching the reflection of the light, and I don't like that. I find it really, really distracting in the foreground. So see, look how them ripples disappear, then you capture all the beautiful clarity in that water in the foreground. Another thing that I don't like is where my camera is here. This is one reason why the composition was so hard. This sort of larger boulder on the left hand side was sometimes encroaching into them waterfalls in the background a little bit too much for my liking. I wanted there to be a small gap between the waterfall and this rock, and if they overlapped, I think it ruined the composition altogether. So that's one, I don't know, aspect of how you have to be really careful in these small intimate scenes with regards to your composition. You don't want things overlapping that you don't want overlapping, because honestly, like I say, I think that could have ruined the scene altogether. But I think this is going to be a nice shot. Then I've got one more in mind that's actually pretty experimental and probably a little bit weird. So now for that experimental shot. It's not very experimental, if I'm being honest. I'm just trying to include a few more of the elements to what I feel this area is all about, how it feels to me emotionally. And to me, other than the waterfalls, of course, on the beck, it's mostly these beautiful crooked trees that are kind of knocking about everywhere within the beck. And of course, I caught some of them in the last image that were behind the waterfall, but I wanted some in the mid-ground for this next photograph, and that's kind of what this image is all about. With that being said, in many ways it's very similar to the last shot, especially technically. So I'm still using the polarizer for the same reason, to cut through that glare on this sort of rock pool that I've got in the foreground. I've just moved down a little bit from the last photograph. I'm still shooting at a 2-second exposure to capture the movement in that water. F13 ISO 100, really, really similar, and similar compositionally in many ways as well. We've got the two waterfalls right up in the background. What focal length? 24 millimeters, so really similar. The last one was at 28, I think. And then we got some cascades here in the foreground, albeit a little bit more, but apart from that, it is quite similar. Now, I mentioned these trees. You can probably see from your position there, we've got this kind of frame here of, well, there's a couple of trees and then there's like a big massive dead, what looks like a trunk that's kind of lying on them rocks there. But for me, it's just creating this beautiful square, and it's just a natural frame for them two waterfalls in the background, which is just absolutely class. I've zoomed in enough as not to include any of the sky. It's just boring and grey and flat. There's not going on, and I think this is a real good type of day to come and shoot these sorts of locations like waterfalls and things like that. Absolutely fantastic. In many ways, I think the conditions suit. If we had direct light here, unless it was like really golden and soft, I just don't really think it'd benefit the image that much. But yeah, like I said, quite similar to the last shot with just a few extra elements. So I'd just like to say a really quick thank you to anybody that's booked me for a one-to-one in the near future. I've had much more interest in those than I first anticipated, so obviously that's absolutely fantastic for myself, and just want to let the rest of you guys know that if it's something that you're interested in, I've still got plenty of dates available, and just feel free to get in touch with me whenever you fancy. So yeah, thanks again, and cheers for joining me on this week's adventure. It's been nice, it's been pleasant, and I think I've got some more shots that I'm pretty happy with. I'm really enjoying you joining me on this landscape photography journey that I'm taking, and I've got plenty of exciting things coming and brewing for 2020, and I'd love you guys to stick with me. And yeah, thank you so much for the support, and I shall see you guys on the next adventure. Out.